I still remember the sound of the front door closing, not slamming, not crashing, just closing, and somehow that quiet sound hurt more than any argument ever could. Maybe that is why I am speaking to you tonight. Because sometimes a mother can survive shouting, disappointment, and even years of worry, but there is something unbearable about silence. There is something frightening about watching a son walk away carrying emotions he never found words for. Before I tell you what happened, may I ask something gentle of you? If these words touch your heart, leave a small sign of kindness below so I know you were here with me tonight. Subscribe if you enjoy these late conversations about love, family, and the choices that shape our lives. Tell me where you are watching from and what time it is where you are right now. Share this with someone who still believes love deserves patience. And if you stay until the end, tell me your honest thoughts, because I would truly like to hear them. You see, many people think mothers spend their lives worrying about careers, success, money, and achievements. Of course we care about those things. We want our children to be safe. We want them to build meaningful lives. But there comes a moment when those things no longer sit at the center of a mother's heart. What keeps her awake at night is much simpler. Will my child find someone who truly understands him? Will there be a person who sees beyond his strengths and loves him through his weaknesses? Will there be someone who remains when life becomes difficult? Those questions become heavier as the years pass. I have watched my son carry responsibilities that would exhaust most people. I have watched him push himself harder than anyone expected. I have seen determination in him that borders on impossible, but I have also seen loneliness, not the loneliness people imagine, not the loneliness of being physically alone, the deeper kind, the loneliness of feeling misunderstood, the loneliness of carrying burdens nobody notices, the loneliness of wishing someone could look directly into your heart and say you do not have to carry all of this by yourself anymore. Have you ever felt that kind of loneliness? Have you ever sat beside someone and still felt unseen? I wonder how many women listening tonight know exactly what I mean. The truth is that love becomes different as we grow older. When we are young, love often feels exciting. When we are mature, love feels safe. When we have lived enough life, we begin to understand that safety is one of the most romantic gifts a human being can offer another. A peaceful conversation, a hand that remains, a promise that survives difficult seasons. Those things matter more than dramatic declarations ever will. For many years I imagined the woman who might someday walk beside my son. Not a perfect woman. I stopped believing in perfect people a very long time ago. I simply hoped for a woman with kindness, a woman who understood that strong people still need comfort, a woman who could disagree without cruelty, a woman who would never turn love into a competition. Tell me something. What do you think matters most in a lifelong relationship? Is it trust? Is it loyalty? Is it friendship? Or is it something else entirely? I genuinely wonder about that. Because every woman who has lived through enough heartbreak discovers her own answer. The story I am telling tonight began with hope. The kind of hope that quietly enters a family when someone special appears. Conversations become lighter. Smiles become easier. Future plans begin appearing in ordinary discussions. Nobody says much. Nobody wants to speak too soon. But everyone feels it. Everyone notices the possibility. And possibilities are powerful things. They allow us to imagine a future that has not arrived yet. They allow us to believe happiness may be closer than we think. For a while, I thought that possibility was growing. I thought my son had found someone who could truly understand him. I thought he was beginning to trust someone with pieces of himself he usually kept hidden. That is not easy for a man who has spent years protecting his emotions. Many people assume strong men are fearless. They are not. Sometimes they are simply better at hiding fear. Sometimes they fear rejection more deeply than anyone realizes. Sometimes they fear disappointment because they have experienced it before, and sometimes they fear giving their heart away because they know how much it costs when it breaks. Have you ever loved someone while being terrified of losing them? Have you ever wanted a future with someone while secretly preparing yourself for heartbreak? Love can be complicated that way. It asks us to be brave without offering guarantees. That is what makes it beautiful and dangerous. As time passed, I started noticing changes, small changes. The kind that mothers notice immediately, a smile that disappeared too quickly, a conversation cut short, a distant look in his eyes, long moments of silence where there used to be excitement, nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, just enough to make my heart uneasy. A mother's intuition is a strange thing. We often sense pain before words arrive. We recognize sadness before tears appear. We notice emotional storms while the sky still looks clear. I remember one evening particularly well. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels unusually heavy. I saw him sitting alone, thinking. not working, not reading, just thinking. Sometimes that is when people are hurting the most, when they are sitting silently with thoughts they cannot share. I wanted to ask questions. I wanted answers. But mothers eventually learn that timing matters. Love is not always speaking. Sometimes love is waiting. Sometimes love is creating enough safety for another person to speak when they are ready. So I waited, and I watched, and I worried, because deep inside I felt something changing, something fragile, something important. I did not know then that the hardest conversation was still waiting for us. I did not know that a quiet goodbye would soon echo through the entire house. And I certainly did not know that one decision would leave me staring at a closed door, wondering whether two people who cared about each other had somehow lost their way. That night, as I sat alone replaying every small moment in my mind, one question kept returning again and again. Was love slipping away because of something neither of them knew how to say? Or was something far more painful about to reveal itself? The next morning, I woke up with a feeling I could not explain. Have you ever opened your eyes and sensed that something had already changed before your feet even touched the floor? Nothing looked different. The walls were the same. The sunlight entered through the same windows. The house stood exactly where it had always stood. And yet there was a heaviness in the air that settled into my chest before the day had even begun. I tried to ignore it. After all, mothers worry. It is practically part of the job description. We imagine problems that never happen. We lose sleep over possibilities that never become reality. But sometimes the feeling remains. Sometimes it follows you from room to room. Sometimes it whispers that your heart is noticing something your mind has not yet accepted. For several days I watched my son move through life as though everything was normal. He worked. He answered messages. He attended meetings. He spoke when spoken to. From the outside, nobody would have suspected anything was wrong. But I am his mother. I have known him since before he spoke his first word. I know the difference between being busy and being distracted. I know the difference between being tired and being emotionally exhausted. And I knew he was carrying something heavy. One evening I finally sat beside him. Not across from him. Not in a formal conversation. Just beside him. Sometimes difficult discussions begin more gently that way. For a while neither of us said anything. The silence stretched between us. Not uncomfortable. Just honest. Then I asked a simple question. Are you happy? He did not answer immediately. That alone told me more than words could have. Because truly happy people rarely need time to think. The answer lives close to the surface. But pain often hides beneath layers, and reaching it takes time. Eventually he looked away and smiled. The kind of smile people use when they do not want others to worry. The kind of smile that breaks a mother's heart. Sometimes, he said quietly. Just one word. Sometimes. Not yes, not no. Just sometimes. I wish I could explain how much sadness can fit inside a single word. I wanted to tell him that life did not require perfection. I wanted to tell him that nobody expects happiness every moment of every day. But before I could speak, he surprised me. He asked a question of his own. Mum, do you think love is enough? I still remember the way he asked it. Not casually, not philosophically. As though he genuinely needed the answer. As though the future depended on it. I thought carefully before responding. Because questions like that deserve honesty. And because age teaches us something important about relationships. Love matters deeply, but love alone is rarely enough. A relationship also needs patience, respect, trust, forgiveness, emotional maturity. The willingness to stay and solve problems when leaving would be easier. Love may start the journey, but character determines whether two people reach the destination. He listened carefully, then he nodded, slowly, thoughtfully, as though he had already been considering those same truths. That conversation stayed with me long after it ended. Because I sensed there was more he wanted to say, more he was struggling to express. Yet some battles must be fought internally before they can be spoken aloud. Days passed, then weeks, and gradually the distance inside him became impossible to ignore. The excitement I once saw whenever certain conversations appeared was fading. The optimism that had once illuminated his face seemed dimmer, not gone, just struggling, like a candle fighting against a strong wind. I wondered about you. Yes, you. The woman listening to me right now. Have you ever loved someone while feeling increasingly far away from them? Have you ever watched misunderstandings grow despite good intentions? Have you ever found yourself asking, how did we get here? Relationships rarely collapse in a single moment. More often they weaken through dozens of small wounds, unspoken fears, missed conversations, assumptions, pride, disappointment. The little things we convince ourselves are not important until one day they become impossible to ignore. I believe many people underestimate how fragile connection can be. Not because love is weak, but because communication is. Two hearts can care deeply for one another and still fail to understand each other. That realization has always frightened me, because it means affection alone cannot protect a relationship. Understanding must grow alongside it. One afternoon everything changed. I was walking through the house when I noticed something unusual, a suitcase. At first it seemed insignificant. People travel, people move things around, suitcases appear all the time, but instinct immediately told me this was different. The sight stopped me where I stood. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. I wanted to dismiss them. I wanted to believe there was another explanation, yet deep inside I already knew. When I found him later, I asked quietly, "Are you going somewhere?" He looked at me, and for a brief moment I saw sadness unlike anything I had seen before. Not anger, not frustration, sadness. The kind that appears when someone has already spent weeks wrestling with a decision. The kind that comes after countless sleepless nights. The kind that arrives when a person feels there are no easy answers left. He nodded, and suddenly my heart sank. Not because he was leaving the house. People leave houses all the time. Children grow up. They build lives. They move. That is natural. What hurt was the reason. Or rather, the possibility of the reason. The possibility that emotional pain had pushed him toward a decision he never wanted to make. I sat down. My legs felt strangely weak. I wanted details. I wanted explanations. I wanted certainty. Instead, what I received was honesty. Painfully honest honesty. He told me that loving someone and building a future with someone are not always the same thing. He told me that sometimes two people care deeply about each other but struggle to create peace together. He told me that constant emotional uncertainty can exhaust even the strongest hearts. And then he said something I will never forget. "Mum, I don't know whether I'm leaving because I stopped loving her or because loving her hurts too much." Those words shattered me, because every mother wants her child to experience love, but no mother wants love to become a source of suffering. I wish I could tell you there was a simple villain. I wish I could point to one mistake, one person, one decision, but real relationships rarely work that way. Most heartbreak is complicated, messy, painfully human. Both people contribute, both people hurt, both people misunderstand, both people carry invisible wounds. That is what makes these situations so difficult. And perhaps that is why I am speaking directly to you tonight, because I suspect many women listening have lived through something similar. Maybe you lost someone you genuinely loved. Maybe pride prevented an important conversation. Maybe fear kept you from saying what your heart desperately wanted to say. Maybe you still wonder what might have happened if one more conversation had taken place. Tell me honestly, have you ever lost someone while both of you still cared? Have you ever watched timing destroy something beautiful? I believe those experiences leave permanent marks on the heart, not because we stop living afterward, but because certain people become chapters we never fully close. That evening after our conversation ended, I sat alone for hours. I thought about relationships. I thought about commitment. I thought about how easily modern life encourages people to walk away. And I wondered whether true love is becoming harder to recognize. Because true love is not simply finding the right person, it is becoming the right person too. That requires effort, growth, humility, accountability, and courage, especially courage. The courage to apologize. The courage to forgive. The courage to stay vulnerable after disappointment. The courage to keep choosing each other during difficult seasons. Without courage, relationships slowly become negotiations instead of partnerships. And once that happens, emotional distance begins to grow. The following morning arrived far too quickly. The suitcase remained. The decision remained. The uncertainty remained. And as I watched events unfold, a painful realization settled into my heart. My son was preparing to leave. Not because he wanted freedom. Not because he wanted adventure. Not because he had stopped caring. But because somewhere along the way, the place that once felt like love had started feeling like emotional exhaustion. And what happened later that day would force everyone involved to confront truths they had spent far too long avoiding. The hours that followed felt longer than entire years. I watched him move through the house quietly, carrying the weight of decisions nobody else could make for him. Every parent eventually learns a difficult truth. There comes a point when love can no longer protect your child from pain. You can offer wisdom, you can offer support, you can offer a shoulder to lean on, but you cannot live their heartbreak for them. If only mothers could do that. If only we could take the sorrow from our children and place it inside ourselves. I would have done it without hesitation. As I watched him prepare to leave, memories flooded my mind one after another. I remembered the curious little boy who asked endless questions. I remembered the teenager with impossible dreams. I remembered the young man who believed that almost every problem had a solution if you worked hard enough to find it. Yet here he was facing a problem that logic alone could not solve. The human heart rarely follows engineering principles. Love does not behave like mathematics. Feelings do not obey schedules, and relationships cannot be repaired by intelligence alone. That is one of the hardest lessons life teaches us. A brilliant mind can accomplish extraordinary things and still struggle when it comes to matters of the heart. I sat alone for a while and found myself wondering about you again. Have you ever watched someone you love slowly pull away while wishing desperately for one more chance to reach them? Have you ever sensed a relationship slipping through your fingers and felt powerless to stop it? Have you ever replayed conversations in your mind, searching for the exact moment everything began to change? I think many people have. That is why stories like this hurt so deeply, because they remind us of our own unfinished chapters. They remind us of names we no longer speak. They remind us of people we once imagined growing old beside. Sometimes the most painful relationships are not the ones that ended because love disappeared. They are the ones that ended while love was still present. Those are the heartbreaks that stay with us. Those are the heartbreaks that whisper to us years later. Those are the heartbreaks that make us wonder, what if? As afternoon turned into evening, I realized there was still something unfinished. Not in the packing, not in the plans, in the emotions. There were words that had not been spoken, questions that had not been answered, truths that had not been acknowledged. And no matter how difficult things had become, I knew silence would only create deeper regret. So I asked him one final question. If she walked through that door right now, what would you say? He stared at me for a long moment. A very long moment. The kind that reveals how much a person has been carrying inside. Eventually he answered. Not quickly, not dramatically, honestly. I would tell her I never wanted perfection. His voice was calm, almost heartbreakingly calm. I just wanted us to feel like we were on the same side. Those words stayed with me, because beneath every argument, every misunderstanding, every disagreement, there is often a deeper need, not to win, not to be right, to feel understood, to feel supported, to feel chosen. Most people do not leave relationships because of a single mistake. They leave because they begin to feel alone inside them. And loneliness inside a relationship can hurt more than loneliness by yourself. That realization changed the way I viewed everything. Perhaps neither person had been trying to hurt the other. Perhaps both had been protecting wounds the other could not see. Perhaps both had been waiting for reassurance while secretly believing they were the only one making an effort. How often does that happen? How many relationships suffer because two good people become trapped inside misunderstandings? How many hearts drift apart while both sides are quietly hoping for connection? I wish more people talked honestly about that. Not every relationship ends because somebody stopped caring. Sometimes relationships end because caring became buried beneath fear, disappointment, exhaustion, and pride is a dangerous thing. It convinces people to remain silent when they should speak. It convinces people to withdraw when they should reach out. It convinces people to protect their ego while their relationship slowly falls apart. Years of life have taught me something important. Very few people regret being kind. Very few people regret expressing love. Very few people regret telling the truth about how they feel. But countless people regret waiting too long. That evening, something unexpected happened. The atmosphere shifted, not dramatically, not magically, just enough to remind me that life often changes when we least expect it. A message arrived. Simple, short, yet powerful enough to stop everything. I will not share private details. Some things belong to the people who lived them. But I can tell you what mattered. The message contained honesty. Not blame, not accusations, not anger. Honesty. And honesty has a remarkable way of opening doors that defensiveness keeps closed. For the first time in a long while, there seemed to be a possibility of understanding. Not certainty, not guarantees. Just possibility. And sometimes possibility is enough. Sometimes possibility is where healing begins. I think many people underestimate the power of one sincere conversation, one genuine apology, one vulnerable confession, one moment of choosing connection instead of pride. Entire futures can change because of those moments. Entire families can change because of those moments. Entire love stories can survive because of those moments. As the night grew later, I found myself reflecting on everything I had learned throughout my life. Love is not proven during easy seasons. Anyone can stay when everything feels perfect. Love reveals itself during uncertainty, during misunderstandings, during disappointment, during moments when leaving seems easier than staying. That does not mean people should tolerate disrespect or unhappiness forever. It simply means that healthy love requires effort from both people. Real effort, consistent effort, mutual effort. A relationship cannot survive if only one heart is carrying the weight. Both people must choose the future. Both people must protect the connection. Both people must remember why they began the journey together. And perhaps that is why I have been speaking to you. Not just about my son. Not just about one relationship, but about something larger. About the choices all of us face when love becomes difficult. Will we retreat? Will we assume the worst? Will we let fear make decisions for us? Or will we remain brave enough to communicate honestly? Tell me in the comments, my dear friend. What do you believe saves a relationship when things become difficult? What quality matters most when two people face hardship together? Patience, trust, forgiveness, understanding. I would truly love to hear your answer. Because every woman listening carries wisdom earned through experience, and those lessons matter. As for my son, the story did not end with a closed door. Life rarely provides endings that neat. The future remained uncertain. Questions remained unanswered. Yet something important had changed. Hope had returned. Not the naive hope that ignores reality. The mature hope that understands challenges, but still believes healing is possible. And perhaps that is the most beautiful kind of hope. The kind that survives disappointment. The kind that survives tears. The kind that survives fear. As I look toward the future, I realize something I wish every person searching for lasting love could understand. The right relationship is not built by two perfect people. It is built by two imperfect people who continue choosing each other despite imperfections. Two people willing to learn. Two people willing to listen. Two people willing to grow. Two people willing to remember that love is not merely a feeling. It is also a decision. A decision made again and again across years. A decision strengthened through honesty. A decision protected by kindness. A decision sustained by respect. And if there is one final thought I want to leave with you tonight, it is this. Never underestimate the value of a conversation that comes from the heart. Never assume someone knows what you feel. Never wait forever to express what matters. And never allow fear to speak louder than love. Because some doors close quietly. Some opportunities disappear without warning. Some people leave before we are ready. But sometimes, if courage arrives in time, understanding can still find its way back. And when it does, it reminds us that the strongest relationships are not the ones that never struggle. They are the ones that find a way through the struggle together.